What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Tribe of Millionaires Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Gruber, and today's episode comes to you right after New Year 2025. And boy, New Year started with a bang. I mean, terrible news on day one of the new year with the New Orleans terror attack and then, of course, the bombing in Las Vegas. And I live down here in the Dominican Republic. I'm kind of looking back up into the U.S. and being like, man, what craziness is coming this year? You had an insane election cycle. You've got a new government coming in and a completely new wave of populism that's taking over not only the country but the world. Justin Trudeau just resigned in Canada. You've got leaders in countries like Argentina and El Salvador on this populism wave. I mean, there's so much interesting stuff happening in the world. And for us as entrepreneurs, for us that are driving toward or already are, or driving toward more millions or already are at $1 million or whatever it might be in net worth, Tribe of Millionaires, what we call ourselves. But for those who are looking for more success, whether it's financial, family, or you name it, I think that it's easy to get lost in the news cycle. I know I have. I mean, even living down here, it's hard not to peek at a video of can you believe someone said whatever in the political sphere or whatever it might be. So what I want to talk about today, I'll share it through the lens of where I am, but I want to talk about probably the most powerful strategy that any of us can embark upon this year in 2025 to have whatever success we want. And the cool thing about the strategy is it really comes down to just one word. And it depends on where you are or I am in terms of which word you select. And there's only two options. That was a little confusing. So what I'm saying is, there's two words that you can choose as a strategy. One or the other is going to depend on where you are. And I'm this year shifting from one word, one strategy, over to the other word or other strategy. So quick story on me. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know my journey. I was a corporate exec with Progressive Insurance. I was making $400,000 or $500,000 a year, equity position, the whole nine, and I did that for 21 years. Around year 17, I started to feel that burnout and that desire to do something else. Started investing in real estate. That seemed like the path. I found GoBundance, and then from that point forward, my life has a different chapter. So GoBundance for me was absolutely a pivot point from where I was for the first, say, 40 years of my life to now where I am from age 40 to 46. The only big difference I made, I had my kids, I had my wife, I had who I am, but the big difference I made was I got around people that represented who I was becoming. So I entered into a season in my life where the strategy, the mindset, everything revolved around one thing, and that was yes. I said yes to almost anything that seemed even remotely related to the path I wanted to go down. I even would say yes if it was something that I didn't know if it was the path I wanted to go down, but I needed to pursue it. I think as we get into our 30s and 40s and 50s, we get this thought in our mind that yes, or experimenting or trying different things, like we don't have the time or ability to do that. But it's the exact advice we would give to a 20-year-old who said, I've got 3-4 different things I want to do, but I don't know which one to go down. Like, which one should I pursue? I'm so confused. I don't want to waste time. You'd be like, come on, man, just do them all. Try them all and see what you like. When you get into your 40s and 50s, I think that advice is the same. Who knows how long we all have. A good friend, that's actually a GoBundance member, recently passed suddenly. Just one of those freakish things at 49 years old. But then, I know people in their 80s still kind of going after it. So if I'm 46, I hope I'm halfway through. Got a lot of time. And in the last 5-6 years, I had one or two choices. I could sit there and lament and figure out and think about, well, I got 3-4 different things. Is it real estate? Is it business acquisition? Is it personal branding? Or I could just say, F it. I'm going to do it all and see what I like, see what sticks. And if I didn't do that at 40, then at 46, I wouldn't have the clarity that I feel like I have today. So my point is, I entered this season of yes, and I think yes is an excellent strategy and one that you should implement. Say you just acquired a business. Say you're thinking about quitting your job. Say you're going for, you're trying to level up or change. They didn't level up, but change the types of people that you're surrounded by. All of these require you to say yes. I'm a 20-year employee at a company, if that's your situation. Do I want to go real estate? I hear it's the smartest way, the safest way. But business acquisition looks interesting. Cody Sanchez lady, I see all this stuff she's talking about. Man, a lot of people are talking about YouTube and branding. What about, this other strategy I heard about? What about ATMs? What about whatever? And it's like, well, go pursue it all, or pursue some of them, 2, 3, 4 of them. I don't mean like start businesses and open companies or whatever, but like go down the rabbit hole, meet the people, go to the local meetups, do whatever it takes for you to get some level of clarity on what you do like, what you don't like. When I first started down this journey, I said yes to real estate and therefore said yes to GoBundance. When I said yes to real estate, I bought 2 duplexes, and I screwed those duplexes up more than you can imagine. I underestimated the cost to repair them. They were burrs, as we call them, by half, meaning whatever I budgeted, which I'd budgeted and gave a buffer, I was literally 100% off. It was twice the amount I expected. Then we hit COVID. We had a sewer pipe leak, frozen ground, can't get a permit to replace it. My most expensive unit of those 2 duplexes down for 9 months. Went through it. I realized in that time, real estate investing is amazing for what it gets you, but I don't think I enjoy the actual process of being an investor. Couldn't admit that then because it was like, whatever. But that's the truth. That led me to say, you know what it is though? I want to go bigger. So do 2 duplexes, 2 tax bills, 2 closings, 2 mortgages, just so much work. Let me get a 10, 15, 20 unit. Did. I got a 16 unit. And it was better. Got a 22 unit. Better. But still, elements I didn't enjoy. In GoBundance, I meet a partner. I syndicate a bunch of units that are still going right now, and I'm really happy, knock on wood, so far that we're, even despite the interest rate environment, we invested conservatively. We invested in below retail. We did a good job with these investments, so they're doing fine through this sort of turbulent rate environment. But that gave me the opportunity to be in real estate. But my role as a general partner was more what I was learning I really enjoy, which is interacting with people, creating content, newsletters, hosting webinars, that sort of thing. Not underwriting. I'm not doing asset management. Other members of the GP team do that. Fast forward, along the way, I'm doing this podcast. I'm building my own personal brand. I moved to the Dominican Republic. I start sharing content here. That gets a lot of traction, a lot of attention, and it's opening up business opportunities for me here as call it an influencer, a travel influencer, an expat influencer, with even a focus on investing abroad. I talk a lot about how to due diligence, all of the stuff that I do as I'm now investing in my first apartment here in the Dominican Republic. So all of that came with the strategy of yes. And I remember along this journey, I felt so guilty for saying yes so much. And I bumped into, through the podcast, a guy that I had followed for such a long time. His name is Derek Sivers. Derek Sivers was the first podcast guest I ever heard on any podcast. He was on the Tim Ferriss show. And I remember, like, whenever that was, 2015, who knows, thinking like, wait a minute, these 2 guys are just like chatting. And this is a thing? That got me interested in brand and podcast. So when I booked Derek Sivers for this podcast, and you can go back and watch it, I even say to him, like, dude, this is like a fanboy moment for me. Like, he's not the biggest name in the world. He's a really interesting guy. Many people have heard of him, many haven't. But dude, it was such a full circle, incredible moment. And the part about being guilty about saying yes, and then Derek Sivers, how that all links together, is Derek has written a book, and he's talked about this standard he calls the hell yeah standard. And essentially what he's saying is, look, I go by it's either hell yeah or it's no. In other words, if it's simply like, that's pretty cool, or yeah, why not? Those are no's. It's got to feel like, oh, hell yeah, or no. So an example of that for me, as I thought through it, was one of my partners in the multifamily space, in the syndication space, happens to also be a writer for Family Guy, has been a writer for Family Guy for 20 plus years. Amazing human being. I messaged him yesterday because of the fires in LA, and thankfully he and his family are doing well. But I remember he called me on a Tuesday about a year and a half ago here in the Dominican Republic, it's far away from LA. And he's like, hey man, do you want to come to LA to hang out? And honestly, yeah, sure. Then he said, it would have to be this Saturday, like 4 days from where I am right now. I don't have a flight booked. It's a long trip, all of that. Now, again, I'm like, I mean, of course I'd love to hang out with him. He's an amazing human being. But like, this is sort of feeling like a no. It's a yes, but not a hell yes. But then he goes, yeah, look, my wife can't make it to Seth's birthday and I need a +1. I'm like, Seth who? He goes, oh, Seth MacFarlane. Seth MacFarlane, of course, is the founder of Family Guy, the voice of all the characters. Like, everybody knows Seth MacFarlane. Now, keep in mind, this same day, Tuesday, I was in the hospital, fully constipated. I had some sort of GI issue and nothing would clear. Sorry for the TMI. But that day, I'm in the hospital. I went to the local clinic to get to have things done to me that no man wants done to. Well, I shouldn't say no man. You get my point. To have things and people putting things in me that I never wanted to have put in me in order to clear this thing. Again, TMI. So I had that going on. But the opportunity to go once in a lifetime to something like that, I mean, it became a hell yeah. So despite the constipation, despite the trip to the hospital, all of that, I figured out a way to book a flight and head to LA on, I think it was Friday evening. I got there and I left Sunday morning. So I was literally there like 36 hours. I went to this party. I was hanging out with a guy named Adam Carolla, who's a real estate investor. Apparently, he was telling me about some commercial properties he did as he drank more and more. But it was an amazing experience. It didn't do anything. I didn't make money off of it. It was just one of those things that I will always have the memory of, thanks to my partner, Mark. But that was a hell yeah. And in my mind, I'm like, that's what I got to be. Derek Sivers, hell yeah, I'm saying no too much. And he goes, wait a minute, Derek. Derek says this, wait a minute. Hell yeah is great, but in order to get to hell yeah, you got to say yes to a lot of no's first. His point being, hell yeah comes at a point where you feel as though you have extreme clarity, where you can clearly see that there's too many yeses around you and there's one hell yeah that's going to drive whatever it might be, your health, your wealth, your relationships, whatever it might be. So for the last 6 years, I've been in yes, and I was feeling guilty about not being in hell yes. And that really settled it for me. I think I had Derek on about a year and a half ago. So from that point forward, I allowed myself to say yes when it made sense, and I could see where I needed to say no from time to time. I want to flash forward, because today as I sit before you, and if you follow the podcast for a while, you've been through the iterations with me, but if you haven't, I told you kind of the backstory. And what I've learned is I've truly found, I believe, at least in this season, where I'd love to spend my time. And that honestly is in content creation. And that's a hard thing for a 45, 46-year-old guy to say. I always say this, like my test for identity comes when I'm on a plane and somebody asks what I do. So when somebody asks what I do, at 46 years old to say, oh, I'm a YouTuber or something like that just feels goofy. So instead what I'll say is like, oh, I'm a real estate investor, or, I'm an entrepreneur. I run a membership community because I have and love the Emerge community, GoBundance Emerge community, things like that. But I've always noticed that when I allowed myself to publicly say what I really feel like I do and where I place my identity, it puts me in a new box. It makes me uncomfortable to say it because I fear the judgment of the person on the other side, but it makes me step into that identity. It makes me step into that box. So today, as I sit before you, I really believe that if you ask me what I am a content creator. So what I did to get even clearer on this is I put together an Ikigai diagram. And my Ikigai diagram, if you don't know what Ikigai is essentially a Japanese word for, let's call it purpose, or at least your highest and best. And it kind of combines and intersects four concepts. What am I great at? What do I love doing? What can I earn money doing? And what adds value to others? So I put all of those together and asked ChatGPT. I told it, this is what I'm great at. This is what I love doing. This is what I can earn money doing. And this is what adds value to others from me. I said, can you give me my Ikigai? And it gave me 3 words: storyteller, connector, visionary creator. I guess 3 phrases: storyteller, connector, visionary creator. All of that is, I'm a content creator. All of that allows me, if I'm on YouTube or even right now, I'm telling a story. I'm great at connecting. People always ask me like, oh, how do you add value in GoBundance? Meaning me, because I'm trying to add value as a member. I'm like, dude, I don't know much about anything, but I'm really good at connecting people. I remember a story from somebody from 3 months ago. I meet somebody new and I say, you two need to get together. Like, that's my superpower. So connector, storyteller, visionary creator. Visionary creator, to me, brings YouTube in, because I love the idea of, I came up with this thought for what a video could look like and then I make it. Like, that's my working with my hands moment. Some people say like, oh, I love building a deck or a house because I can physically see the outcome. My job in insurance claims, I couldn't see the outcome other than denials of claims or whatever. But I could physically see the outcome by creating a YouTube video. So I feel like I'm in my lane going into 2025. last quarter 2024 and going to 2025, I feel like I'm really in a place where I know where I love spending time. I know what I'm great at, what I love doing, what I can earn money doing, and what adds value to others. I know my ikigai. So now I'm entering my season of the other strategy. And I want to go deeper because it's more complex than no. And I'm going to give you a quote from somebody that took this no idea to the next level. But 2025 for me, and I communicated this in the GoBundance community, is my year of no, where I want to say no to way more. And what's hard about that is I'm not just saying like somebody says something, just say no as my default, but like I have to look at what I have been doing. Who have I been meeting with? What's on my calendar? What are some things that have been really important to me that I need to say no to? I have this, I have a few different pods in GoBundance, and one of them is great group of guys or whatever. But based on what that pod is about, more real estate focused than everything else, even though we do a lot of life and everything else together, I had to say no to that one pod after like 5.5 years. That's hard. So no means not like as it comes in, say no to it for me. That's not how I'm interpreting it. It means more, I got to look at what I am doing now and figure out what I need to clear in order to go fully in on my ikigai. Seth Godin, who's like a marketing genius author, many of you have probably heard of him. He took this to a new level in a podcast that I listened to recently. I forget the podcast that he was on, but he was a guest. And it was really in depth, and it hit me at the right moment. One of those things, like when you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad at the right time, it's like, oh my God, the heavens part. Like the version of you that reads it in that moment, it was the perfect timing. It's the same thing when I heard Seth Godin, perfect timing, because I'm thinking about no. He talked about in this podcast, he's in his 60s now, how he no longer flies for work. I thought that was interesting. I no longer fly for work, he said. He said he doesn't fly for work for two reasons. One, he's an environmentalist, so there's part of him that is just he feels like it's his contribution, to each his own. The other part, though, he said was, look, he said he was offered to go speak in Bali for like, I don't know, a lot of money. But he's like, but that's going to give, that I'm going to be giving 3, 4, 5 days to somebody else by doing so. I offered to do it virtually. They said, no, I completely understand that. No, I can't come. And he said this about how he decides what to say yes and no to. He said, I only get tomorrow once. Who do I want to offer it to? I only get tomorrow once. Who do I want to offer it to? And when I heard that quote, it absolutely blew my mind. And the depth and the breakdown of the quote, I'm going to do that for you in just a second. Real quick before I do, I've mentioned GoBundance a couple of times. Speaking of saying yes, one of the things that I talk to people about, whether it's in Emerge, Elite, Champion, Emerge is 0 to 2 million net worth, Elite 2 to 10 million, Champion 10 million plus, who are saying, yeah, I kind of feel like a lone wolf, which is what I felt like. I understand the power of being around a great group of people and how that can unlock me. If that's you and you've thought about or considered, should I invest the money? Should I invest the time? I think I would highly encourage you in this season of yes, if you're in that season of yes, if you're looking to make that change in your life, if you're going to the next level in any part of your life.
The key to life, it isn't money, it's happiness. And when you measure how happy you are, you actually become even more happy. Our friends at GoBundance, the Tribe of Millionaires, use a very specific tool to measure their happiness. It's called the Life Happiness Index, and you can have it too. Go over to GoBundance.com/LHI and take your Life Happiness Index assessment. You'll rate yourself in multiple categories on exactly how happy you are and get a custom output for you specifically that you can use in developing whatever goals you have for your life. GoBundance is the tribe of healthy, wealthy, generous people who choose to live epic lives. And the tool GoBundance members use at the base of all of that is the Life Happiness Index. Get out there and grab life big.
Apply. Trust me. Go to GoBundance.com. There's zero cost for you applying. You get on a call with a GoBundance member, a member ambassador, a regional leader, and they could talk through what membership looks like and all of that with you and see if it's a fit for you and for GoBundance. But the more people that I used to do this a lot. I used to talk to people that wanted to be in GoBundance. I don't do that really anymore unless it's just sort of as a favor. And for each and every one of them, it's always the same thing. Like they know that this is the right thing for them, but they're just trying to figure out, will they get the value? And what I say to them is you get what you put in, of course, but also if you are coming in with the idea of how do I get, then you'll never get. Come in with the idea of how can I give? Maybe you're a connector. Maybe you've got insane knowledge around cost segregation. Maybe you've acquired a business. Maybe you've sold a business. Maybe you've gone bankrupt. Maybe you've been divorced and you've come back from divorce. Whatever it is, you've got value to offer. Come in understanding that you're getting access to a community of high-performing men that you now get to serve. And imagine what would happen in your life if you were known to a bunch of high-performing, high-integrity men as the guy who serves. If you're religious at all, what does that mean? And this is not a comparison for those who get a little weird with this, but like we talk about serving God and the riches that come from that. That's the highest possible being that you can serve, God. No human is better than the other, but the where you're going, like if your thing was like I want to be a YouTuber, well, let's say go join that YouTube mastermind where the people in YouTube are way ahead. We have some GoBundance guys that are doing that, but still, go join that community and be in that community so you're with those guys because they're ahead. And imagine serving those guys, how that comes back to you, their knowledge, their experience, their connections, their network, all the things they've cultivated. That's what GoBundance is. Apply at GoBundance.com. There's a community for you. I wanted to make sure I made that point here in the podcast. Seth Godin. I only get tomorrow once. Who do I want to offer it to? What I love about that quote, for me personally, I'll internalize it for me because I can't say it for you, is, I mean, obviously the first part, I only get tomorrow once. That's sort of one of those like, this life is finite, right? You don't have forever, as much as we think we do sometimes. But who do I want to offer it to? The more common phrasing of that to me, or the easy like, hey, you only get tomorrow once. Like if you were to ask me to complete that sentence without hearing that, I would say, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? Or what am I going to do? So what and do. He says who and offer. Who am I going to offer it to? So he's not thinking about what he's going to do. He's thinking about who he's going to spend that time with. For me, that's very impactful because family and people, that's my thing. Creating content, my Emerge community, like I love who I get to surround myself with, not what I do. I love who I get to serve, not what it is I do in service. So I love who. And then the word offer it to, or the phrase. Look at my ikigai, storyteller, connector, visionary, creator. What I love is, as a guy who has always struggled with imposter syndrome, who if I get myself to a place of feeling myself a bit, I immediately see my ego getting out of control, even though it maybe not, and I stomp it down. I got to do that self-deprecating humor. I've got to exercise humility. I've got to display that for the world, right? I feel that way at least. The moment I feel a level of confidence, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. The moment I feel a level of confidence, something inside of me wants to beat the hell out of my ego and say, get down, you're bad. How dare you be confident? Confidence becomes cockiness in my brain, I think. When he says, who do I want to offer it to? That word offer to whoever that might be, to me is that like perfect intersection of where confidence meets cockiness. It's like right at the edge, that perfect place where you're not overly confident, you're not cocky, but you are as confident as you can be. Because when I say, who do I want to offer it to? I'm not saying like, how cool am I? I'll decide who gets me. I'm saying, hey, there's people I love serving. Of those folks, who do I want to offer my time to? And then it's up to them if it's worth it to them. Whether that's an audience like all of you, whether that is an individual, whether it's my kids. And so if I say in this season, yes, to something that is not hell yeah, if I say yes to too many different things, I am offering my time to some who's, very likely, that aren't the who's I want to offer it to. I want to offer it to my kids. I want to offer it to my family. I want to offer it to my audience. That was such a powerful quote for me. So for all of you listening, what I would say is decide for you and be honest about it. Where are you? Are you in the lane? Are you like, man, I'm in that lane? It doesn't mean you never say yes, but if you are and you feel like I found it, I got it, I've ideated, I've tested, I've gone through the ups and downs, the iterations, the pivots, all the crap. And man, I know that if this year I focus here, it'll be my best year ever. Then you only get tomorrow once. Who do you want to offer it to? But if you're not there, and I mean, I look at this almost like a pyramid. Like I'm talking like that's like the 1 of 1%. That's where I am this year. I'm not like better than anybody when I say that. See, look, I'm doing it right now. My confidence, I'm squashing it because I don't want to come across as cocky. But I'm saying like this year I've achieved that. I've gotten to this place where like, okay, I'm very clear on where I want to go. And I've had these years before. All of us have. When I was in my corporate job, when I wanted to become a director, when I would become an executive, like, man, I was very clear and I had to say no to a lot of different things. And it was easy to do that because the yeses I said served a single purpose. My wife, when I met her, like she's way out of my league. If you've ever seen her or been around her or talked to her, she's beautiful. She's intelligent. She's the most incredible human being I've ever met. So the idea that I could form a life with that godlike being, the way I see her to this day, that was very clear on what I would say yes to and what I would say no to. So we all have moments of being in this like tippy top of 1%. Maybe it's the whole year, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 6 months for me. I don't know. But if you're there, then this might be your season of no. But if you're not, and that's going to be most of you, so let me just set that. It's going to be most of us, then say yes. That's my key. Your strategy should be around yes. Doesn't mean you should burn yourself out. It's not what I'm advocating. But if you can see reasonably how a yes here could potentially serve you in the future, then do it. I'm headed to the GoBundance event at the end of January in Snowbird. It's a long trip. Snowbird is in Utah. I've got like I get there like midnight, and when I leave, I do a red eye to Washington, 8-hour layover, and then back down here to Punta Cana. So it's a lot of effort to get there. So this question, I only have tomorrow once. Who do I want to offer it to? I'll be honest with you. There's two people I see as clearly who I want to offer that to. One is me. Whenever I go to these events, I mean, I can tell you story after story about what happens later in life after this event. So for me, when I go to an event like this, I'm saying, man, I go to this event understanding that it's like putting $1 in the stock market today and let's see what it's worth in 2 years. Every event this is my 20th one. Every event I've been to, I can point back to a year, 6 months, 2 years later, where something at that event created something in my life today, or a relationship that was cultivated that manifested in something amazing happened at an event 6 months ago, a year, 2 years ago. So if I go to Snowbird, as I go to Snowbird, I look at that event as I'm the one that I want to offer this time to because I need this for me. And I understand that I don't know exactly what will come of it, but something will. But I know for sure if I'm not there, that nothing comes of it. The other who I want to offer it to is anybody I can sort of like throw the rope down, not as like from a net worth or anything perspective, but 20th event. There's going to be some guys there that are there for the first time, second time, third time. Some guys that might be questioning like, I've been in GoBundance 9 months, or I just renewed my second year. We'll see if it works, that I could sit down and shake them and say, can you stop? You live in your neighborhood. Is it always epic every year? Or do you get value in totality? And the return that you get may come 6 months, a year, 2 years later from the neighbors you have and the house you own and the community that you live in and the school your kids get to go to. Like, I'm there for those people. So that's who I want to serve. And I GoBundance has given me so much that's my give back. I don't need to give it back to the founders or to Matt King or any of the power structure in GoBundance. It's those guys that jumped in, many of whom maybe listened to me on this podcast and did so, and are wondering, like, what does this look like? What is the future? I want to offer my wisdom and my time to them. So is your season yes? Is your season no? What's your strategy for 2025? I would say most of us probably need to still be in a yes strategy unless you're extremely clear on where you're going. If there's any sense of like, well, I'm doing good with flipping houses, but I've been talking to somebody about buying a business, go test that lane. Say some yeses. And if you go through that and you're like, wow, you know what? I've gotten a new appreciation for what I do on the flip side and I am all in. Now you start saying no. That's my thoughts, my friends. Happy New Year to all of you. I hope this 30 minutes was worth it. Hopefully you could speed it up to 2x and get 15 minutes, only do it in 15 minutes. Would love to hear from you. You can email me, jamie@jamiegruber.com. And I would love to hear your thoughts on what your season is. Is it yes? Is it no? And if you don't mind, share this podcast with some people. Share it with anybody that you think could benefit from hearing the message in today's episode. I hope it was worth it. And I'll talk to you all soon.